Hello there and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to share with you this week's make, which is this space vest. For those of you who are new here, my name is Holly. I am a mother of 3. I am currently on maternity leave with my third, who was just born at the end of May, and I am on a mission to improve my sewing skills. So to that end, I have committed myself to doing one new project a week and documenting my progress here on YouTube. So without further ado, let's talk about this week's make. Okay, so let me show you the vest and then I will talk a bit about why I decided to make this. So this is a fully lined, sleeveless and hooded vest based on a pattern out of a book that I bought at a fabric fair probably like 5 or 6 years ago. And this is actually the first thing I've ever made out of the book. The vest has these panels that run up the front and that become the hood, and pockets on either side that are sewn into that front panel. And I fully lined it with the same self fabric because I wanted the inside of the hood that is visible when it's kind of laying open to be this same silver color. So my husband is going to Tokyo next week for work and has convinced me to bring the baby along and go with him on this trip because it has always been my dream to visit Japan. In fact, it was supposed to be my 40th birthday present to go to Japan this year, but I was pregnant and so we never went. But long story short, I'm going to Tokyo for the first time in my life next week. And so I'm super excited. So when I finally agreed that I would go with my husband on this trip, I thought to myself that I should bring along something that would be easy to layer because it can be a little bit warm, it can be cool, it's kind of in that transitional season, and it can get a little wet. So maybe something that's good for layering, but that also has a hood. Hence the hooded vest design choice. So after I decided that I wanted to do a hooded vest, I also felt like I wanted to create something that maybe had a tiny bit of Japanese design influence. Now, I don't know a ton about Japanese fashion, but I had this pattern book that I bought at a fabric fair like 5 or 6 years ago that I've never actually made anything out of that is based on Japanese fashion. So here is the book. I don't know if it's available to purchase anymore. And to be honest, I don't even know how accurate it is to say that this represents in any way Japanese fashion or certainly Japanese fashion of today. But let's just say this was the only resource that I had at my disposal. And I remembered that there was a pattern in here for a hooded vest, which is here. And I thought, oh, okay, maybe that's perfect. So the only waterproof or even semi-waterproof fabric that I had in my stash was this quilted silver fabric. And I decided, although the pattern is not lined, to line it anyway because the inside of this silver fabric, or the wrong side, is kind of this dull gray, which would have been visible had I left the vest unlined. On the parts here where it folds over and is open, specifically the inside of the hood and the inside of this kind of lapel area. And I didn't want that. I wanted it to be silver everywhere, homogeneous everywhere. So it is also fully lined with the same fabric. Now, when I look at this vest, having completed it according to the pattern, I don't get a strong Japanese fashion vibe. So not sure if this one is a miss. It's also pretty bulky and I wanted it for layering, and therefore I kind of imagined it being a little bit lighter weight so that it would be something that I could easily put in my bag and take with me but not wear the whole time. And it's, when I take it off and fold it up, it's still pretty bulky, and so not super convenient for just popping in the bag or during the day. Okay, so let's talk about what I liked in this pattern before we get on to what I might change if I were to do it again. So first of all, I like the panel here in the front that goes into the hood. I really like that design. It's all one continuous piece up into the hood, and I think that it looks really nice when it's opened up like this and the inside of the lapel is visible. So I really like that design feature. Similarly, I like that this pocket is sewn into the seam between this front panel and the rest of the front piece, and then on the other side between the front piece and the back piece. So it's not just top stitched on, but it uses these seam lines to attach the pocket. And I just feel that the fluidity or continuity of that pocket placement and the fluidity of this front lapel section into the hood makes for a nice aesthetic for the vest overall. I like those features. Now, what I don't like about this vest, unfortunately, I think that the lining in this quilted fabric was a mistake in that it made the vest very bulky. And I had wanted this to be something that I could layer on other clothes and that would allow me to bring something that's hooded with me. But I'm not sure that that's really practical because it's quite big and bulky. I did try to understitch the lining down in the front, around the hood, and in the armholes, but I just don't think it actually made a difference with this fabric because it's so bulky. So you can see that the inside is rolling out and is visible to the outside. It's not a huge deal because this is all made out of the same fabric, so it's not so immediately visible, but it just doesn't look nice when the two layers are kind of detached as they are here, and kind of give this like puffy, unfinished homemade look. Also realized kind of too late in the game that I think I would have wanted a zip or some other form of attachment in the front. I do actually prefer to wear it open, but because of all of this kind of rolling over of the seam here and the visibility on the inside, I think it might just look a little bit more put together if it were closed in the front with a zip. But that would require me unpicking this seam and the understitching. And I just feel like even with a zipper, I don't know that this is going to be as functional as I had hoped. So I'm just not convinced it's worth the effort to try to save this vest. I did contemplate with actually putting in a row of elastic around the waist to kind of have it cinch in a bit. And I even created a little hole on either side to facilitate that. But then when it got to this point, I realized that I didn't want to have to sew two lines of stitching between the two layers of fabric. I didn't think that would look very nice, given that there is already a quilted design that is somewhat interrupted by the seams of the jacket already. So I just felt like it would just be too much top stitching on top of something that's already kind of quilted and has all this top stitching going on. I also didn't feel like you could put elastic in the waistband without a closure here in the front, because then the elastic would just pull it open and maybe pull it back in a way that wouldn't really be conducive to wearing it underneath a jacket. So I abandoned that idea. I then thought maybe I could make a belt to go around it. But likewise, I kind of want to be able to wear this on top of a jacket, and I wouldn't do that with a belt around it. I would just do it wearing it open. And I don't like the look of a vest that has a belt that's not being utilized, with the little belt flaps just hanging off the side. So I, again, abandoned that idea. So now we're left with a vest that does not close. Now, is that a bad thing? Could you just say that it's a design choice? There's no closure prescribed in the pattern, but yeah, it's not perfect. Likewise, this armhole is a little snug for wearing this vest over other outerwear. So it's perfectly fine for wearing over a shirt like I'm wearing right now, but a thicker jacket, for example, to wear this on top would be a little bit difficult because this armhole is pretty snug there. Somebody woke up from his nap. So as I was saying, the armhole is a little bit snug, and so not really conducive to wearing over a jacket, but fits over a shirt easily. That's fine. And then maybe the last thing I would say is the hood doesn't cover your full head, or it certainly doesn't cover my full head. So it's kind of like a decorative hood. It just covers the top part of my head, and probably is intended to be worn as I'm wearing it now, just kind of open. And I like that look of it, but I guess I didn't realize that the hood was going to be so small when I set out, because I had wanted this to be functionally something that would protect me from the rain. And when I looked back at the pattern, I realized that the pattern maker didn't imagine a bigger hood for the bigger sizes of the vest. So the hood is the exact same size for every size of the vest. And I'm wondering if that's why it feels so small on me, because I did make the vest in a pretty large size, but it's got this kind of one size fits all hood size, and so maybe I should have graded that out myself. But good to know for the future. What do you think? Overall, I found the pattern easy enough to follow, but I think that's mostly because I have slightly enough experience to understand how to put a vest like this together, because otherwise the instructions were a little bit sparse. It kind of does assume some understanding of what you're doing. So not sure if that is true of all sewing books. I'm sure it's not. But this is the only sewing book I've ever purchased, and this is the first pattern that I've ever made out of it. So very narrow experience. But overall, I mean, I was able to execute the vest. It looks more or less as advertised in the book, so I can't really fault it too much. I'd say I fault maybe myself more for my fabric choice in wanting it to be something a little bit discreet, but then picking something that was like this puffy quilted fabric that was bound to be a mistake. But overall, this is it. This is this week's make. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you again in my future videos. Take care.